aware of Jordan Peterson. He's this Canadian psychologist who also teaches at the University of Ontario or
Toronto.
Toronto. That's right, Toronto. And he kind of came into prominence because of he was very outspoken against this law that the Canadian government was trying to pass called Bill C-16, which basically compelled the speech of its citizens in regards to transgendered individuals or supposed transgendered individuals. And he was a vocal not proponent. What's the opposite of proponent? But he was against it.
He was very outspoken against that bill, right. And he had essentially he said he'd had enough, and it's like, I'm not going to use these made up words just because.
Or he's not going to allow for the government to dictate what words I'm allowed to use.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because he saw like the underlying like authoritarian nature of this law, where like the government is dictating what words you are allowed to say, compelling its citizens to speak, in a certain manner, pretty much, stomping out any free expression or speech.
Right.
And so, he himself has been slandered and defamed and deplatformed, and he's had hit pieces written about him, like calling him all manner of things, like a Nazi, a transphobe, alt-right figure,
He's been all over the place.
Yeah, just basically like every insult in the book. He's been, any and every insult that people usually throw at people to try and discredit them or to silence them. And but despite all that, he persisted and he endured, and he was able to come out the other side, stronger than before. Because if the biased media and leftists had left them alone, didn't protest his speaking engagements, didn't try to slander him or anything, he probably would have just disappeared, or he would just be like this obscure figure that barely anybody had heard of. But but because the left and the biased media kept putting him forward and calling him all these things, I think it's like the reverse Streisand, or it's the Streisand effect, where you just get more eyeballs on it, and then people who would never even have heard of Jordan Peterson, he's now on NBC and all these other major media networks.
Right. And he's kind of able to share his message that he's been trying to get across, which I would think is a pretty good one. And we've certainly obviously talked about him quite a bit, have been inspired by him quite a bit. And his book, was it 12 Rules for Life, is I think a good read. There's been some other books that he has suggested that I have on the queue. I haven't read them yet, but I picked them up. Like the Gulag Archipelago, I'm kind of excited to read that eventually. And then even his, he talks about his program, that he has through his website on kind of, what does he call it? It's the kind of writing out your self-authoring. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, the self-authoring program. Something that I plan on doing with Joyce. Her and I doing that together. And all those things are fantastic. And I haven't really had too much, negative to say about him up until recently. And he's kind of, I don't know. I feel like he's, at least in this instance, he has betrayed his cause slightly. And because he came out recently talking about with the whole Brett Kavanaugh nonsense, he came out and saying that Kavanaugh should he should resign or step down, and it was through a which seems a little okay, that's a little weird, and apparently it was a series of tweets that he was having with the Weinstein brothers, and he further explained himself, because Twitter is not exactly the best place to form thoughts on. It's not really possible, and so looking at that, it's like, well, that doesn't seem right, because he's been such a defender of not apologizing to the mob, not and kind of standing your ground. Yet this seems exactly the opposite of that, and so I think.
And Robert says, like, I mean, let me just jump in here with that. Robert says, like, this is a slight betrayal, but I think it's bigger than that. I think it's a major betrayal of, like, the message that he has been sharing with people around the world for, like, the last, like, year and a half, 2 years. Because he does go against what he's been saying, that you should, that you should, because he said that you shouldn't apologize to the mob, but like because he said, like, I believe he should, like in the tweet he said, I believe he should, say what you will, words are important, and that believe part is the one that is troubling to me. It's not like he said I think. He says I believe. That means he's gone beyond. He's thought it over, and he now has a stronger conviction for that Brett Kavanaugh stepping down is the right course of action. That's the real big thing that I'm having a little hard time looking the other way about.
Right.
He does go on his website. He does put out a post, kind of going more in depth about his post and explaining, his thought processes and things like that. But
the reason I wanted to dig into this a little bit more than just react to his tweet, because one, like I said, he's not a short form guy. You need to absorb him more long form, because
I grant that, yes.
Yeah, and Twitter definitely does not grant you that. So Twitter might not necessarily be a great form for him to begin with. And then also, like I said, he's someone that we look up to, and we at least up until this time, like, his message is still a true message. Whether he's betrayed it itself or not, I think it's kind of transcended himself. So his initial message is not wrong.
I think that's what makes like the betrayal even worse.
But anyways, Jordan Peterson, I'm a little bit like I want to see how this plays out, and hopefully that this is just an aberration, and that he kind of continues with his initial message. But who knows? We'll see who's right here as more stuff and more content comes out. But I do urge those who have been fans of Peterson that his initial message of what he's been talking about up until this point is a good message. I think like I said, his book is good. I disagree with how he got to those points, but his conclusions based off of how he understood a lot of the biblical characters and kind of the the stuff that he talks about in his book and through a lot of his messages is still a good one to listen to. And yeah, clean your room is still like it's a get your life in order. That's still a good thing. People should still do that. So that's all I have to say on the Jordan Peterson thing. I think we've exhausted this topic.
I mean, okay, for my criteria, he has to drop. He has to get away from CAA, and then also and then offer mea culpa. That's that. I mean, I'm not gonna discount like everything he ever said, but for me, like to get to for me to like get back on board, so to speak, I would need those things from him. Like first get out from under CAA, and then also offer mea culpa, because he obviously knows that what he said was wrong. He has to, because the experience that he has, he cannot in good conscience say that Brett Kavanaugh stepping down is a good idea. Him like bending the knee, apologizing to the mob is a good thing, because he knows better. He knows better.
I don't know. Part of me, and maybe this is I'm clinging on to something, but part of me feels like he's just gotten in over his head.
I doubt it. But that's just me. That's just me, and
Yeah.
We'll just have to just keep an eye on the situation. We'll just keep an eye on the situation.
Hey, we don't have to agree with each other. That's okay.
I know. I think we need more. Discord in our podcast, because then it just, because if we don't, then it just becomes two guys agreeing with each other. It's like, I agree with that. I agree with you.
It does match up with our name, the Circle of Jerks. Mm-hmm. So hey.
Yeah, you're wrong, Robert.